Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Hidayah. I am from English Language Teaching Department, Semester 4, Class C. In this video, I will explain about my ELTM assignment about Learning Implementation Plan in English Language Teaching. And I've made the Learning Implementation Plan, or we know that as RPP in Indonesia, for students in senior high school class 10. And then the subject matter is narrative text, especially in oral, written, text, and auditory forms. And the time allocation is 2 times 45 minutes. And then the basic competencies are analyze the social functions, text structures, and linguistic elements of simple narrative text in accordance with the context of their use, and capturing the meaning of simple narrative text in oral, written, text, and auditory forms. The competency achievements are the first is speaking skill using P3. In this competency, students can demonstrate achievement in expressing opinions about the story in narrative text, and then students can demonstrate achievement of the social function of narrative text, and then students can complete and sequence the structure of the narrative text, and then students can improve the linguistic elements such as grammar, vocabulary, speech, word stress, intonation, spelling, and handwriting. And then students can calibrate acquired skills with the basic competencies to be achieved, and then students can control their speculation skills by retelling the narrative text using their own language. And then in writing skills, using P3 also. In these competencies, students can demonstrate understanding of the narrative text that has been given, and then students complete the sequence of a random narrative text, and then students can comprehensively complete the story of the narrative text, and students can calibrate acquire skills with the basic skills, and students can control the writing of narrative text. But in reading, I used C4 and C6 competencies. In C4 and C6 competencies, there are two competencies. The first is analysis, and the second is create. In analysis, students can achieve understanding of the narrative text that has been given, and in create, students can answer questions about the narrative text that has been given. And then in listening also, I used C4 and C6 competencies. So the students can analyze and achieve understanding of the narrative text that has been given, and also students can create and sort a random narrative text. And the objectives of learning activities using a scientific approach with a problem-based learning model. First, after conducting group discussions, learners are able to analyze the social function of simple narrative text. And then the second, after conducting group discussions, students are able to analyze the structure of narrative text appropriately. And third, after conducting a group discussion, the learners are able to retell the narrative text using their own language. And then, after conducting group discussion, the learners are able to compose random narrative text correctly. And then, through the problem-based learning model on narrative text, learners are expected to be able to communicate, collaborate, think critically, and create or foresee, as well as have an honest, caring, and responsible attitude. And then strengthening character education. The first is communicate, and then the second is collaborate. The third is critical thinking. The fourth is honesty, and the last is caring and responsible attitude. And then the learning media. For the teaching material, I used Canva application, and then for the speaking skill, I used interactive website and link YouTube, and then for reading skill, I used Wordwall and Canva, and then for the listening skill, I used quizzes and YouTube, and then for the writing skill, I used a live worksheet and then Google Drive. This is the learning activities. In the first meeting, the time allocation is 2 times 45 minutes, consists of introduction 15 minutes, and then the learning process 70 minutes, and then a closing 5 minutes. In introduction, there are 3 steps. The first orientation, the second apperception, and the last is brainstorming. For the apperception, I used came from YouTube, like clapping that, clapping this. And then for the brainstorming, I used interactive website. For the introduction and narrative text. So the teacher can choose the student randomly, and then the student can match the picture correctly. After that, students can express the opinion about the story. The next step is learning process, and there are 70 minutes here. Before that, I used 5 minutes for the teaching material. I made a video using Canva application. And then the first skill is speaking skill using 30 minutes. And then the media learning is YouTube for the speaking skill. So students should watch the video first and understand about the material from the video, and then students can perform a monologue in the form of narrative text in groups or pairs in front of the class. And then for the reading skill using 15 minutes, and I used Wordwall and Canva as the learning assessment. You can answer the assessment based on your number from the spin. For the listening skill, I used 10 minutes for the learning, and then there are 2 media here. The first is YouTube and the second is quizzes. And the last is writing skill. I used live worksheet media for the assessment, and then the answer can be submitted on Google Drive. And then for the writing skill, I used 10 minutes for the answer. And then for the closing, I used 5 minutes.